You know what's the most amazing thing about Michigan's path to get here? They've never lost their edge. I mean, we saw it this week during press conferences. The players are wearing Michigan versus everyone. They like proving the doubters wrong. Oh, but it gets worse. It also happened to be his 40th birthday. Lions head coach Dan Campbell, in the words of Taylor Swift, man, why you gotta be so mean? Nike didn't say how the footage would be used. And they definitely didn't explain that through split-screen TV magic, Reed would match up with someone who lives in Italy. The 2017 and 2019 winner really struggled bogeying 4 of her first 9 holes and is now in danger of missing the cut.
I mean, granted, they didn't play well for pretty much most of the game, but when they were locked in those final 5 or 6 minutes, they looked fantastic.
Jared says all the right things. He talks the talk, but it all comes down to whether it tastes good, and now we're going to find out. And that is pretty good.
That's a touchdown.
Oh, you see, and that's the advantage right there, Jamal, of having 4 legs as opposed to 2 as we take a look at the replay. Get that burst of speed and then boom! I just want to say a big prediction tomorrow. The Lions are not going to lose, I promise you. And you know why?
Aren't they
No
not playing?
play.
Because they're off.
After losing to Michigan State a couple weeks ago, I'm sure a lot of people counted out 6th-ranked Michigan. Wonder what they're thinking now. As evident by their efforts in the last 2 games, it is clear the Wolverines could still be a factor in the battle for the Big Ten crown. U of M on the road taking on Penn State, team that's beaten them the last 2 games. Fourth quarter, it looked like the Nittany Lions could make it 3 in a row. Sean Clifford in the end zone, Tyler Warren touchdown. After the 2-point conversion, it was tied at 14. Then it goes from bad to worse for Jim Harbaugh. Under 7 to go, Cade McNamara back to throw. He is mauled, and there goes the football. Penn State gets it back deep in Michigan territory at the 16-yard line. However, credit to the U of M defense. They buckled down, and PSU would have to settle for a field goal, so they were up 3 with 6 to go. As it turns out, that was plenty of time for McNamara to get revenge. Under 4 to play, he finds Eric All, and All is going for it all. Down the sideline, and he is just able to get in. That's a touchdown as you see the replay. Michigan up 21-17. Now, just a matter of the defense holding strong, and they would do just that. Pass incomplete. Michigan wins 21-17.
Played their hearts out.
Oh, tell them, Coach. Michigan improves to 9-1 this season. They are at Maryland next week. Now, speaking of the Terps, they had the misfortune of playing Michigan State. 7th-ranked Spartans still angry after the upset loss to Purdue last week, and they took it all out on their poor opponents. Head to East Lansing. MSU coming out strong by using one of its favorites this season. It's another flea flicker, and once again, it works. Peyton Thorne hooking up with Montori Foster. 52-yard strike, one of 4 touchdowns for Thorne on the afternoon. Also had 287 passing yards. Meanwhile, Kenneth Walker also had a good game. The Heisman candidate, 143 rushing yards. This the first of his 2 touchdowns. When the dust settled, Spartans won 40-21. They too are 9-1 this season.
We're going to get ready for the next one.
And that next one is a big one. In Columbus next Saturday to play 4th-ranked Ohio State. Should the Spartans win this and the regular season finale against Penn State, they are headed to the Big Ten championship game. Finally, much like Michigan basketball did at Prairie View A&M, we're going to make quick work of these final highlights. The 6th-ranked Wolverines playing in D.C. for the first ever Coaches vs. Racism game. If you recall, Hunter Dickinson from that area, he looked at home early with a dunk. He scored 11. Michigan up 7-0. Dickinson, one of 4 U of M players to finish in double figures. Leading the way was Eli Brooks, who scored 15. Michigan moves to 2-0 with a 77-49 win. And that's sports. Michael Barron's coming back with your final forecast next. A few years ago, at the end of a football game, I was taking pictures of the losing team as they walked off the field. Suddenly, I saw one of the players, a big senior lineman, coming toward me, threatening me if I didn't stop filming. I politely said I couldn't, and before there was any further interaction, he was taken away. I'm not sure how the rest of that conversation would have gone, probably not well, but I'll tell you what I would have told him. As a journalist, for good or bad, it's my job to get the story, and right now, you losing, unfortunately, is the story. I bring this up on the heels of a social media post from American swimmer Simone Manuel. Following a disappointing performance in Tokyo this week, she sent out this tweet, quote, "Please stop interviewing athletes after a disappointing performance before they have any time to process anything. Trust me, they gave it their all, nothing else people need to know at the time." Now, from a human element, I get where she is coming from, but I don't agree. It's a classic case of you can't have it both ways. Many athletes love the exposure the media gives them when things are going well. The same, however, cannot be said when it's the opposite. And that's simply not right. Asking what went wrong isn't wrong. But what's wrong here is them expecting us to act like we work in public relations and not in journalism. I'd love to hear what you think about this. Send me an email, mlacett@wzzm13.com, or find me at Twitter @MikeLacett. It doesn't matter, no one can recall its exact location.
I don't remember the address.
Or that some of the details have been lost through time.
All I know is it was very close to the Burger King.
What matters is that each man can remember how one home helped make them the leaders they are today.
I think it shaped all of us because none of us were making any money. You know, the only reason we weren't married is we didn't have enough money to take girls out on a date.
This was the life of three up-and-coming Michigan State coaches in the late 1980s. Tom Izzo, Tom Crean, and Jim Boylan are big time now, but back in 1989, they were three single guys trying to survive, working for the legendary Judd Heathcote, and trying to save a buck by rooming together in a three-bedroom house in Hazlitt.
But my room was good. It was certainly the best investment you could possibly make because Tom charged Jim Boylan and myself $200 a month to live with him.
Izzo owned the house.
I was a slumlord.
So he got to make the rules.
One of my favorite things about Tom Izzo is he hasn't changed a bit.
And just as his current players at Michigan State would attest, Izzo ran a tight ship. Crean and Boylan were expected to chip in with the chores and keep things clean, a skill Crean admits wasn't his strongest.
I'm sure I didn't carry my weight like Jim and Tom did, but fortunately they never kicked me out.
It took a little bit of digging, but we found it. Right at the end of the block, the house, the basketball laboratory, and the place where for 1 year, three men worked nonstop to perfect their craft and move closer toward their dreams.
It was great because we worked all day together. We stayed at the office, went home to sleep, and that was about it.
For each future head coach, there was no escaping basketball. And that was exactly the way they liked it. Because not only were they learning on the job, they were also learning from each other.
I learned from Tom Izzo that, you got to try to push your guys to a place they can't take themselves. And you do that by having a relationship with them first.
Inevitably, the trio went their separate ways. But while their careers have taken them in different places, they remain close, still connected by this house that in just a short time became their home.
You think about that group, Tom Crane's been to a Final Four. I've been to a Final Four. Jimmy's, been a part of 2 world championships and a head coach in the NBA. I'd say that there was pretty good water in that, in those places we lived.
Mike Lacett, 13 on Your Side Sports.
Lights out on that pace car.
Jeff Striegel's job title says he's the head NASCAR radio play-by-play announcer.
Over Kurt Busch, Matt DiBenedetto.
But that is not the way he sees it.
Let's do it right, Mike. Let's make sure we do it right.
Okay. Instead, the Wyoming native views himself more as a co-anchor, which is a much more accurate description of his role.
I think what makes magic for radio is the fact that all of our mics are always live.
You see, unlike most sports, NASCAR on the Motor Racing Network doesn't use one play-by-play announcer to describe the action.
Byron looking high, looking low.
They use 4.
When we get going, we do a baton-style handoff.
With the Hendrick Motorsports Chevrolet.
They've got one more shot at Ryan Blaney.
I'll pick up.
They sort it out. They continue on.
And then the others will take off behind me.
One final shot off the corner.
They'll try to cross over.
They make it sound so easy. Along with racing legend Rusty Wallace serving as an analyst, they have 2 play-by-play announcers in the booth and 2 others around the track, each stationed at a corner. Now here's what's really impressive.
It's all voice inflection.
After a wild slide off the end of the back straightaway.
And the down pitch of the voice is the cue that the next announcer's up next.
Cars go to the apron in turn number 1.
Yup, that's right. There's no button cueing them up, nor is there someone screaming in their ear to start talking. In fact, all producer Ryan Horn primarily does is make sure they make their sponsors happy.
I mean, they're able to carry these things, with all the experience they have it kind of locked down.
The multi-play-by-play announcer approach actually began in 1970 when the Motor Racing Network was formed. Back then, the MRN felt NASCAR needed a shot in the arm. Well, it got one.
It's intense, non-stop, and most of all, fun.
One more run by Byron and it will come up short.
Is it an art? I don't know, but there is always that feeling when you know that the entire group gelled and you delivered the best performance possible.
And when that happens, it's not only a win for them.
Ryan did not let go.
It's one for the audience, too. Mike Lacett, 13 on Your Side Sports.